and welcome to a new episode of ReptilTV. My intro animal today is a rainbow boa, Epicrates cenchria. This one is a hypo, that's what this color morph is called, hypomelanistic, as a juvenile. Not that spectacular yet, so only when they grow a bit, or rather from the size we have here. Now this one is maybe about 60 centimeters. The color really starts to stand out in my opinion. Of course we know the lateral eye spots from the cenchrias here. I don't know, maybe because of the hypomelanistic trait, since you can see them less clearly. The question always is, when you see such a color morph, is it more beautiful than the natural, the wild type, or not? We terrarium keepers probably always think so, but that also has to do with the fact that if I've been seeing red rainbow boas for 30 years, which are absolutely gorgeous in their wild form, and then a hypomelanistic animal comes along, it might just give my eyes or my brain a new stimulus. And I say, that really does look great and interesting too. And because of that, you might think that they are more beautiful or just as beautiful or something special. I think that's the background behind these color morph breedings. And you know, I'm just a fan of these color variants. So that's why today for you, a beautiful hypo red rainbow boa, the beautiful Epicrates cenchria, as your intro animal. Today's topic is the top 5 terrarium animals that look like aliens. Forgive me for this bit of a clickbait title. It's obviously the classic social media clickbait talk, I'd say. They look like aliens from outer space, but the suggestion came up and the idea behind it isn't bad at all. There are some cases. It's not for nothing that when we watch certain movies, we sometimes see our terrarium animals either copied exactly in a similar way or altered with AI, but then they show up again anyway. That's why in today's episode, I'm presenting the 5 that I think fit this theme the most. Of course, this is not claim to completeness. I'm sure I've forgotten 1 or 2. If so, feel free to post it below and let me know what I missed. Or the one I find the most bizarre or the most similar, it's like being released from a spaceship onto the world. But now I'll tell you my top 5. We've already done an episode about the monitor lizards, which we can link for you below. Interestingly, that episode got an incredible number of views. I think that was partly because of the thumbnail. We featured these monitor lizards, lantanotes, in the thumbnail. And I think that this photo alone is the reason why that episode got so many views, because they just look so bizarre, really like some kind of dragons or something that have come to this world. So that's why they definitely belong in the 5. Alien-like terrarium animals. By now, they are also being bred very successfully in the terrarium hobby. And you see way more of them than before, which I actually think is great. So they're really having a success story in the terrarium world right now, because they really are also a good terrarium animal that can be bred. Unfortunately, the next animal is not represented in the terrarium hobby. That's the Australian thorny devil, or Moloch. Are you also called? Yes, that's our, I don't want to say problem, but that's kind of the terrarium phenomenon that Australian animals, due to the general export ban from Australia, are rarely represented in the terrarium hobby. Well, rarely represented is relative. There are already quite a few, but some species like this thorny devil, you just can't get. This has been done in the terrarium hobby outside of Australia. a bizarre terrarium animal because of those insane spikes, of course. They really do look absolutely creepy. And then there's the coloration on top of that. So it's definitely something you'd want to have if you could. I think there's hardly a lizard keeper or terrarium enthusiast who wouldn't wish to have these animals and maybe even breed them. Maybe that will happen in the next few decades, but at the present moment in time, it is completely underrepresented in terrorism. I think I've only ever seen one of these animals in real life, and that was at a fair in Japan. It was actually a display animal, not for sale, just for show. But otherwise, I've never actually seen one in person. Totally bizarre, which is why they definitely belong on the list. Another lizard that also looks really bizarre is the lyre-headed Agama Lyriocephalus guttatus. They come from Sri Lanka and are also, unfortunately, hard to spot there as well. I've been to Sri Lanka many times in my life. As you might know, maybe notant, I've often searched and looked for them, but I've never seen one in the wild, unfortunately. Yeah, I also find them totally bizarre. Bizarre, especially with that noticeable bump on their nose and that relatively quite oversized head. There are also different color variations. I don't know if they're all the same species or subspecies, because the color does vary quite a bit. They really look bizarre. I could imagine that as terrarium animals, they're actually not that hard to keep. There are some in the terrarium hobby, but really very few. I don't know anyone who breeds them. I don't know how it is with you. Maybe you know someone, or maybe you even breed them yourself. If so, please speak up here or maybe share some great photos with us. Yeah, a super bizarre, beautiful lizard. Definitely among the top 5. Let's move away from reptiles a bit. We're talking about terrarium animals here. Whip spiders and tailless whip scorpions, I'll just group them together now, are also absolutely bizarre. Visually speaking, I think they almost look a bit scary. The interesting thing is that they are actually relatively or completely harmless. You can, in theory, touch them without anything happening, or rather, the tailless whip scorpions can spray a secretion. But even this secretion, unless you get it directly in your eye or something like that, is nothing that can harm you or cause any health problems. Visually, really bizarre. So those pincers at the front and those relatively long legs. Well, I don't know about you, but when I look at it, I think you're initially afraid of this animal, even though it's actually completely harmless. And that's what I find fascinating about it. So its appearance totally distracts from how harmless and inoffensive it actually is, or simply what a beautiful invertebrate or a bizarre invertebrate it is. And because of that, it's actually quite well suited for terroristics. Anyone who's into spiders or something similar will definitely have a real eye catcher in their terrarium with this. And my last pick among the top 5 is an animal that, to be honest, caught my attention in the past few weeks or months, I have to admit, mainly through social media, or I think it was on Insta. That's why I came across it. It is the five-fingered hand mole, Bipes biporus. I mean, I find that really creepy. Up until now, I didn't know anything about this terrarium animal. I don't know, does anyone have one? So do any of you have one at home? Is anyone here maybe breeding them? If so, please post about it, or maybe even write to me personally. That's definitely something I find absolutely fascinating. From what I've read, they're probably really not even that hard to keep. I think that because of their secretive lifestyle, you probably don't see much of these animals. So maybe that's something for terrarium enthusiasts. I don't want to say boring, but of course, if I have a terrarium animal that really only lives hidden in the substrate or something, it might not be quite as exciting as something that sits out in the open where I can always see it. Maybe that's one reason why it hasn't been so successful in the terrarium hobby yet. Otherwise, I think they're relatively easy to keep. They eat all sorts of things, insects, other stuff, basically anything they can handle. Yeah, their appearance is totally creepy, whether it's the color, the head, the eyes, or those tiny little feet up front. Personally, I think they're cool and laid back. As I said, I'm really interested in them. So if any of you know a bit more about them, feel free to write to me. So we should probably make short film or something like that. I'm curious to see if I get any feedback from you guys. Those were my 5 aliens in terrarium. If you have other suggestions or if you think I forgot something, post it below, give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and otherwise, see you in the next episode. Check out the aliens, check out the UFOs, or see if maybe our terrarium animals might actually be from another planet. But I don't really think so, but you can go ahead and check for yourselves.